With your permission, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Prashant Agrawal, Director IITs in Ministry of Education. I welcome you all to the thematic session of Research and Development. Today, it's a great honor to have with us Professor Ajay Kumar Sood, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India and Chairman PM Stack, as Chair of the session. Sir has received many prestigious awards, including Padma Shri, Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, G.D. Bidla Award for Scientific Research, and the list is endless. We welcome you to the session, sir. I also welcome Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain, Vice Chancellor, Banaras Hindu University, a recipient of Padma Shri Award. Sir has earlier served as the Director of IIT Gandhinagar also. I also welcome Professor K.K. Pant, Director IIT Roorkee, who is a distinguished professor of IIT Delhi. I also take this opportunity to welcome Professor Raghunathan Rangaswamy, Dean Global Engagement, IIT Madras. Sir is the key person for taking forward the initiative of IIT Madras Zanzibar campus in Tanzania, the first ever offshore campus of an IIT. We also have two eminent industry leaders who will be guiding us through this session. Shri Sudarshan Jain, Secretary General, Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance, Senior Advisor, Apex Partners, an alumnus of St. Stephen's College, Delhi University and IIM Ahmedabad. Sir has served in several leadership positions for over 40 years in the healthcare industry and was formerly the Managing Director at About Healthcare Solutions. I also welcome Professor Kumar N. Sivarasan, Chief Technology Officer of Tejas. Tejas Network is India's leading design-led OEM of high-performance wireline and wireless networking product for telecommunication service providers. Sir is a distinguished alumnus of IIT Madras, a PhD from Caltech, and prior to Tejas, served as the faculty at IISc also. We welcome all of you, sir. Now I request Madam Soumya Gupta, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Education, to kindly facilitate our chair and guest of honor with the mementos. I request Madam to please offer memento to Director IIT Roorkee, Pant sir. To kindly facilitate Professor Raghunathan Rangaswamy, Dean Global Engagement. Request to kindly facilitate Shri Sudarshan Jain. And Professor Kumar and Shivarasan, CTO Tejas. Thank you very much, ma'am. I request the chair for his opening remarks and also request to moderate the session. Sir.
A very good morning to all of you. We have a very distinguished panel this morning to look at a very important aspect of education, namely research and development. We will all agree that inculcating and strengthening research culture and scientific temper in our higher education institutes is one of our key priorities. And that is true for all countries which are on the path to really having supremacy in all fields of humanities. India, as one of the young nations in the world, is among the leading scientific powers in terms of global competitiveness in various frontiers of science and technology. This we see all the time when we look at our diaspora and our leaders in India and outside. We can see a whole lot of talent in this field. Our strength lies in the form of an extraordinary, passionate, and creative young population, and leveraging this strength to its full potential demands for targeted approach. And this is the purpose of this panel discussion, how we can do that in a manner that it is effective in a short run of time. It is important that we create equal opportunities for everyone to participate in and excel in research and innovation activities. And you will all agree that inducing entrepreneurial spirit and nurturing them is essential for us as a nation to progress towards knowledge intensive economy. And this we have seen the way we have built up the startup culture in the last few years, having more than 1 lakh startups, many of the unicorns, and also having deep tech startup getting rooted in India. So this number has to increase. We have limited number of deep tech startups out of this large number of 99,000 startups, and this is something where R&D will be absolutely essential to see that how we can really enhance our deep tech startups in the country. Now, what are the critical issues and priorities that we aim to address? And in that context, the NRF bill, which will be placed very shortly in the parliament, will play a key role. Now, one thing is very obvious, that in a country of our size, with such demographic dividends we need to go beyond IITs and IISCs. Nothing against IITs, I know the panel is full of them and this is our strength, but we just cannot be satisfied by only few institutes in the country doing extremely well. We have to increase this number. So there is a large pool of researchers and institutions in India which are still not part of the active research ecosystem. Now you will all agree that R&D efforts are concentrated in few institutes. So one of the objectives in the next coming years will be to ensure that researchers, students and faculty members from many state universities, central universities and colleges are able to perform high quality research and contribute to frontier knowledge creation as well as translations. Now this is, in my view, is most essential. We are really tapping less than few percent, less than 5% of our mind space in the country if you integrate for this purpose. And this will not be good for the country if we leave aside a large fraction of our young people out of the R&D system. So we need to do that. So we need to do capacity development in tier 2 and tier 3 institution. And how can we do that? Now this is the thing which we should discuss, because once we do that, we will have a large ecosystem, not only in R&D but also in innovation. How do we take it to startups and so on? So first we should see how we can incentivize world-class researchers to take up professorships in state universities and colleges. And second, this is included actually in NRF bill. So we have included large number of professorships for this purpose. So this is taking everyone along. And second will be, which is absolutely essential in my understanding, is the consortium approach. So we must have this R&D projects and deliverables in frontier areas where researchers from IITs, ISCs, NITs, ICERs, and state level universities and colleges, they should really come together and really deliver it. So this consortium approach is not like one is superior than the other. It should be on equal footing. There is a element of give and take, and this consortium approach, in my view, in funding will be very, very essential to strengthen this system. And needless to say, we have to align our R&D with national priorities. They cannot be separated. All the SDG goals have to be kept in mind. And it is important that we encourage basic as well as applied as well as translational research. In my mind, this is an artificial divide, because today's basic research will be applied. And the best example which you are breathing every day is the quantum technology. Quantum technology, when it was quantum mechanics in 1920s, when it was done, nobody would have thought then 2020 would see this euphoria of quantum communication and quantum computing. And this couldn't have been possible if we were not ready with our basic understanding of superposition and entanglement. So it is very clear that basic research at a very high level, which makes a difference, is essential. And we should all be very, very sensitive to what are the national priorities and how we can translate our knowledge to achieve that. So I think with this few words, I look forward to a very engaging panel discussion. We have a wonderful set of people coming from academia as well as from the industry, the startups. The early startup in the country, we have Tejas startup starting from ISC, leaving ISC for greener pastures, making a name. So proud of you that you have done. ISC proud as well as country proud. And we have our pharma sector people, IIT directors, and I think we will have very engaging discussion on the themes which have been given. And the end of it, I hope we will leave enough time to take the discussion with the audience. So thank you, Honorable Minister, for being here. That only reflects the importance of R&D which you give in this very, very important sector of education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your opening remarks and setting the context, sir. We welcome Honorable Minister of Education, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and Secretary Higher Education amongst us to grace this occasion, sparing their valuable time, sir. Sir, I now request Dr. K.K. Pant, Director IIT Roorkee, to kindly present the background and the expected outcome for this session, sir. Sir.
So, very good morning to all of you. Honorable Minister, our Secretary Higher Education, Chairman of the panel, Dr. Sood, all the other panelists, and all the other distinguished personality of the dais. It's my pleasure to give you a background and the expected outcome of the today's panel discussion and the discussion or question answers after the panel. So I made this few slides just to give you the overall, right, what was happening before National Education Policy 2020 and what we envisage in future and what has been done in past 3 years by different HEI. So if you look at, right, what the different things here, the skill, intellectual property, the lot of R&Ds were being done by professors, all higher education institute faculty members, but there was still a lack of selling and contracting the skill, which was a big challenge. There was a lack of recruitment of quality faculty, too much focus on basic research, not on fundamental and applied research. There was lack of interdisciplinary research. So these were the things, right, which you see on one side, and if you look at the right hand side again, the curriculum was a very, very traditional type. Bookish knowledge was given, students were getting the grades and then they were leaving for their jobs, but the practical application was very limited. So that is again, you see there were very limited patents, and when you talk about the indigenous technology or make in India concept, they were very limited of this kind of the product development within the country. And that's why there was a need that how this National Education Policy 2020, which is made for the holistic development of our scholars, and at the same time the outcome of that research to the society. And when we look at the Make in India concept, Atmanirbhar Bharat concept, and how to make the technology develop within the local area. Now there are 23 IITs, several 300, more than 300 universities, and more than 2,500 higher education institutes. So I think there is a need to connect all these to look at the product development and to develop the technologies which are for the commercialization within the country. So if you look at that, the need, the enabling innovation and entrepreneurship within the campus and the outside the campuses, so that is where the fostering innovation and entrepreneurship need that was there. And just like that, IIT Roorkee has already created within 3 years those kind of, right, the robust ecosystem, because I always tell that the nexus which we call food, energy and water, FEW, and if you look at the demand, right, for our locals, for our society, it is always a quality food with good health and hygienes, then potable water, again a big challenge, and then finally the sustainable energy. So if you make these all three together, I call it FEW, few in excess. If you just try to move only one side, then there will be an ecological balance. So when we talk about this nexus few, everybody has to work to make the entire ecosystem balanced, and with that view, I think all higher education institutes are working, and they are looking in terms of this technology readiness level booster. IIT Roorkee has already implemented this, and also there is a need to work on this Indian knowledge system with scientific validation. So many IITs have now this Indian knowledge system in the course curriculum also, and that is also important that this should be validated scientifically and then globalized also. Women empowerment is always, right, we are talking a lot of things, and how this, right, the number of women can be introduced, right, in science, technology and entrepreneurship, mathematics, project development. So we call it in total steps and STEM both, where the contribution of, right, with the concept of the diversity, equity and inclusion is equally important. So when you talk about the background of this new education policy, national education policy in total, we call it, right, whatever the changes have been made, the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. So earlier it was just the discipline, we talked in one discipline of science, engineering or arts, but now there is a need that there should be the several disciplines come together, and then they make the technology work together with interdisciplinary approach and finally converge it to some product development. So that is where the interdisciplinary research is very important, and find innovative solutions for the complex problem. And all, right, when you look at all the higher education institutes now, they carry these kind of multidisciplinary research and innovation solutions to complex problems through specialized, right, centers. So there are more than 2,600 now the R&D cells which have been created within the country in last 3 years. And there is a need that all the higher education institutes should join hands and develop the products wherever the facility is available. They should go and make a team and then work on these directions, how the product can be developed. So international center of excellence, there is a need because globalization is also equally important. Then industry academia, already the center of excellence are being created. Research and data, artificial intelligence, data science, these are the new tools where I think every branch of science and engineering has to work and then bring the technology in for the respective disciplines and finally make it in convergence. So that is also important. Then Center for Sustainable Energy, which are the new areas, how the R&D can be taken forward in terms of the concept of green hydrogen or utilization. So how this carbon mitigation, which can be made by 2070, that is also our important challenge. And I think every HEI has to work in that direction and finally make a team and come forward and develop some kind of product, right, or the green hydrogen as a product from the at a economical cost. That's also very important. So we need to work on that. So when you talk about, right, all this, so I'm not discussing this, but this is very important, that building and running sustainable research groups within the country, and that is where you see that embedding sustainability through collaboration. We need to work knowledge and capacity building, utilization of resources, contribution to the society. So all these things will come in the subsequent panel discussion. So these, what you see this circle where there are 10 points have been mentioned, and that is how to talk about the sustainability. So that's very important, that when you talk about the new product development or R&D, we need to work in terms of the total, right, the societal importance, but at the same time the output in terms of this globalization. There are a couple of challenges also, right, where we have to tell them about the ethics. So whenever the products are being developed, when the technology is being developed, all these points are very important, and I am not reading all these points, but ethics is very important in the R&D activity. So how to take this forward? So research ecosystem, when we are talking, right, external research funding, so all HEIs are working in this direction. The research focused on new areas like sustainable energy, renewable energy, food, sustainability, water resource management, smart infrastructure, data science, and many areas where R&D is required. Faculty initiation grant, right, every IIT or every HEI have that, and that is also need to be extended. Some new softwares like IIT Roorkee has Param Ganga, and we have a couple of those R&D technologies which are developed within the center. So multidisciplinary, that is the approach which need to be worked, and that is where again the background. So this I am skipping. These are the couple of activities, and already HEIs are working on these areas. The important thing is that how the other HEIs can come together and join hands, and then finally they come to the product. And I think that is the important discussion during the panel which will come, and we need to execute on those points later. So what I am, just to conclude, the expected outcome from this R&D conclave discussion is that collaboration, national and international support to the researchers, then resource sharing and knowledge sharing among all the higher education institutes. Then we need to understand the establish strong industry connect and enable digital cutting across industry, academia, patents, all these things are very important. Finally, support to research and forming the clusters, diversity and equity, women participation in science, technology and mathematics, and also project development, several other things which will come through this discussion. Digitization is again important, and every HEI has to work on that. So I think this is the background, and this is the expected outcome of this R&D under NEP 2020. So with this, I just thank you, and I think we will have the continuation of the panel discussion, and we will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Meanwhile, we welcome Dr. Subhash Sarkarji, Honorable MOS for Education. We welcome you, sir. Sir, I now request Professor Raghunathan Rangaswamy, Dean Global Engagement, IIT Madras, to share his views on roadmap for the institutions. Sir.
PowerPoint is there, no? Loaded. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how we can think about institutional development in the context of NEP, and I'm also going to talk about, for everything that I say, what we are trying to do at IIT Madras as a case study. So when I think about institutional development, you have to focus on what research themes you're going to follow. You have to think about research capacity upgrade, infrastructure building, and the most important thing I believe for India and Indians right now is a mindset change, and I'm going to also talk about that very quickly. First, for any institute, institution building takes a lot of time. You need to leverage the people that you have. So when we think about how we build an institute, we think about assessing the internal strengths of what our research is, and then try and see how we can build on that. Of course, understanding the country's priorities, and every institute should try and build on certain areas that will really help nation building, and I'll talk about that. And given the complex world that we are in and the interdisciplinary nature of everything, I think we have to move forward in interdisciplinary fields. We cannot be left behind. How do we do all of this? You need to set up centers of excellence, tell them that you have to be the best, not in India, but in the world. And while it might look very difficult right now, few years down the line it will happen, and that confidence is needed. And you need international collaboration. Many times not even because you don't know something, but because you have to get the word out, and you have to have the world believe that what you're doing is the best, and that requires international collaboration. Finally, I think we really need to look at very bold problem statements, not small statements, but really bold problem statements. These are important aspects that we really need to look at. At IIT Madras, thanks largely to the Institute of Eminence scheme, what we decided was we were going to look at how to organically build centers of excellence which will be the best in the world. So we ran 2 phases of funding through this Institute of Eminence, gave quite a bit of money to research groups that were capable of doing very good work at IIT Madras, and we came up with finally 15 centers of excellence in different areas, each one from the Institute of Eminence scheme funded at around 15 crores, and you can see all the interdisciplinary areas that are here. The nice thing with this funding is while you give this funding and then say, do the best you can, this has to be a money multiplier or a force multiplier. So this, you cannot sit with this 15 crores. You have to talk to people around the world, you have to talk to industry, and then make it 200 crores. And that's the goal that we have. So we've told all these 15 centers of excellence that the goal is to be top 5 in the world in the next 5 to 10 years. What does top 5 in the world mean? If someone asks anywhere in the world, where is the best place to do sports science and analytics, for example, IIT Madras Sports Science and Analytics Center should come out at least in the top 5 names. That is qualitatively what top 5 means. Quantitatively, we can talk about citation numbers and so on. But this kind of brand recall is very important. And we know how this happens, right? And once you do this, then it just grows. So that's something that we are very keen on. And at IIT Madras, as I said before, while you look at what your strengths are, you also have to look at how you can contribute to large national projects. So we have several projects, 5G, clean water, and so on, that IIT Madras is working on towards really helping the nation. So that's in terms of research areas, but one also has to look at how you develop people. I'm not just talking about students, but also faculty to be able to do this interdisciplinary research, right? So you need to develop large multi-institutional networks. We are at IIT Madras, we are part of a network called Heritage Network, which has about 13 European universities and 15 institutes in India, which are a part of that. And how do we bring a lot more of our universities into this so that we learn together? So that's something that's important that we do. We have to build interdisciplinary academic programs, and that's something I'll show you how we are doing. And you have to also talk about multi-institutional degree programs, where our students go and sit with international students, and together they do work. And the most important thing here is it's not that our students are not good, but many times our students think they are not good. So when you go out and work with others, you see you're equally capable or even better. That really makes a mindset change. So that's something that we are really interested in doing. So at IIT Madras, we have close to 300 MOUs with different universities in the world. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to send at least 2-3 students to every one of these universities. So that way you have 900 students going abroad. So that's the goal, and we are working towards that. Looking at joint doctoral programs, we have about 19 joint doctoral programs, which again improves the students' capability to come back and work in India. Okay, so just a quick idea of how we are combining the IOE research. Every research center has to do an interdisciplinary education program. Then that basically brings together people. We have about 9 interdisciplinary education programs. What we then did was we enhanced them into international master's program, and we have students from several different countries coming into these master's programs at IIT Madras. I just want to focus on a couple more things because I have 5 more minutes and I'll finish it. The one thing that is a deterrent for really top quality research is a lack of equipment sometimes, top infrastructure. And as already been talked about in the panel, IITs are actually in a good place, IISc is in a good place, but there are several engineering colleges which do not have the infrastructure. Now you cannot keep building very expensive infrastructure for equipment in every one of these universities. I really think we have to learn from the Olas and Ubers of the world. You have to have an aggregator model, which is every university should try and centralize their infrastructure first. And then that infrastructure should be available for all faculty. Infrastructure in a country like ours cannot be the preserve of a few faculty who can raise money. So you centralize internally, and then you centralize nationally. So you get a few institutes to become global aggregators. They can get all of this. It's just building a portal. What is Ola? What is Uber? It's just one app. Building a portal where this facility is accessible to the whole country. So that's something that's very, very important that we should focus on. So this is one thing that I just wanted to mention. And lastly, I think as we go forward, it is not going to be a limitation of money or limitation of mind power that is going to hold us back. It's going to be a mindset change that we need. We need bold research statements and problems that people work on. We need to maintain a nice balance between incremental research and blue sky research. You cannot abandon incremental research because your numbers will go down. And most of it is also perception, so we have to have a healthy balance. You have to collaborate both internally and externally. And I was talking to Director IIT Roorkee. We have JDPs with universities abroad, but we don't have JDPs among IITs. Why not do that also? So that's something that we should really think about. And we have to build a system where people don't fear failure. So there are problems which you'll start. And in our country, many times, and we know this in space programs and so on, anytime anything fails, people are very happy to talk about it. But it's very difficult to succeed all the time. So you should be happy to fail quickly and move on. So that's something that we should do. And the last thing, which is what I really believe, followers can never become leaders. So if you are reading research papers and then following someone else's work, however well you do, you will be still a follower. You have to figure out what you can lead and then come up with bold research statements that you can lead and others follow. So that's how I think we really make a difference in terms of research in this country. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, as we all know, for research and development, industry academia connect is very crucial. So I'll now request Shri Sudarshan Jain, sir, Secretary General IPA, to enlighten us on industry academia connect. Sir.
Good morning to you all, Honorable Minister, Minister of State, Secretary, Higher Education, Professor Sood, very distinguished panel, and all interested in research. It is a great opportunity for me to give the context of this in light of pharma work which has been done significantly during last 4 years. As we all know, Indian pharma sector is a strategic sector for the country. In 1980s, we used to import everything, all medicines, 80% of the medicines. But today, we are supplying medicines to 200 countries around the world. 40% of medicine requirement in US is met by us. 33% in Europe is met by us. We are third largest in the world in terms of volume, but we are 14th largest in terms of value, a great requirement. And I would like to thank government because during this time, government, industry, academia work together to make sure that we are able to supply medicines around the world. The critical thing is we are 14th largest in value and 3rd largest in volume. There is a tremendous gap. And the critical question is, how do we upgrade ourselves and how do we get the focus on R&D? Given this thrust in 2019, there was a committee which was set up under the leadership of Mr. Pankaj Patel. He was the chair of the committee. And there were stakeholders which were involved from industry, academics, research institution, and government by Department of Pharma. And we have been working very closely with Niti Aayog, with Principal Scientific Advisors Office, and we have moved significantly forward in the overall thing. What I'd like to talk in this presentation, where we are today, what worked, and new education policy is a catalyst to move forward the agenda. And we like to be a significant player. And as was talked, we have got a bold vision as far as this industry is concerned. Hey, don't worry. What I like to do instead of wasting the time, if we have done a global study as part of this group, and when we started looking at it, although we can say that we supply medicines to 200 countries in the world, but when you start looking at the segments, we are very good at branded generic. We have 30 to 40% share of the branded generic market. Very important slide. But as far as incremental innovation is concerned and new molecular entities are concerned, we are meager. And 2/3 of the market is in the innovative drug, and 1/3 of the market is in branded generic. We can be proud that we are supplier of medicines in the world, but unless we move up the value chain, we can grow further. So there is a significant need that we have to grow up the value chain. We have to spend on R&D, and that's where the future is. R&D areas, we have to get into India-specific elements like drug-resistant infections, oral cancers, which is not there. We have to get into NDMs, chronic diseases, that is the area. If we do that, we will be able to leverage the talent in this country. And as Professor Sood was talking about demographic talent, it is important that the opportunities have to be there. And that itself will generate around $15 to $20 billion of expenses returns every year. If we see any market in the world, it is the research which makes the difference. So if we want to realize our vision of top 3 economies in the world, R&D has to play a very, very important role. And there is no choice as far as that area is concerned. What we did, we identified the 5 pillars which are very important. One is regulatory landscape. Ours is a regulatory industry. It is important that we simplify the regulatory landscape. And there is a lot of work which is taking place by Health Ministry, CDSU, to simplify the regulatory landscape. The point is, it takes around, say, 360 days to get approval in India, whereas in India whereas in US is 160 days. So we have listed down various steps and what needs to be done to get that right. There is a lot of work which is being done in infrastructure building. If we see globally, the research and innovation got the flip. Take the classic case which Professor Bharat Bhaskar of IIM was talking yesterday, Stanford, Boston, Singapore, the clusters and innovation where everyone gets together and cross-cultural, cross-specialty interaction take place. That itself is a boost to research. So cities like Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, Bangalore, beside the other cities, can we create clusters to move forward that agenda? There is robust funding support, which is very, very important in the research. And what I like to focus is strong linkage between academia and industry. I'll give the example of before COVID, when we were looking and the COVID started 25 March, we didn't know what will happen. In 12 months' time, India developed vaccines, and academic and research played a very important role. 225 crore vaccination has taken place in India. Serum Institute worked with Oxford to develop the vaccine. Bharat Biotech worked with Indian Council of Medical Research. Today we have got 6 vaccines. We have got DNA vaccines, which was developed by Zydus. We have got nasal vaccines, which have been developed by Bharat Biotech, which shows the vaccination story. What we did in COVID shows that if industry, academia, and government works together, we can make difference as far as research is concerned. And that is the primary learning, and I will talk of some of the steps. Given the brief time, I will focus only on 4 areas which can make the difference going forward. We identified 4 areas: strengthen academic talent and infrastructure. Some of the steps which have been taken: course curriculum upgradation. There is a big development which has taken place in the healthcare field. Every 3 years, the knowledge doubles up. But our courses of pharmacy colleges, NIPERS, have been very, very old. We have started working, in fact, we have worked on a collaboration. Industry Association, IPA, is working with PCI. There are 4,000 medical pharmacy colleges in the country, 400,000 graduates pass out. But if we don't upgrade them with the right kind of skill, with the changing world, that skills will be not relevant to the industry. And it is in the interest of the industry, it is in the interest of academic community. First factor which has to be dealt with is course curriculum upgradation. And I saw in today's paper, IIT Delhi took the exercise and did that area, which is very, very important. It is commonsensical, but very, very important that course curriculum upgradation has to be there. Second is teachers training. The teachers in tier 2, tier 3, they don't get the exposure. We have started a program again with PCI where teachers are given the opportunity to come to the industry. They spend 1 month. That exposure itself is very, very important. This has been, first batch has been undertaken, and we have again announced the second batch. So we will keep on working with the academic institution, provide them opportunity to come to the industry, because there is a lot of advancement which is taking place. The very exposure itself gives a great outlook as far as teachers are concerned. Very simple thing, very commonsensical thing. So we said, let's start with the small steps, and they are not only Bombay, Delhi teachers, they are from smaller cities, pharmacy college, they come to the institute and make a difference. Second area, which is already talked in national education policy, attracting talents. So we are also telling our teachers, our practitioners, to teach in the pharmacy college around their locations. So we have got big manufacturing sector at Baddi, Visakhapatnam, Gujarat. The leaders from those companies, they go and teach in the institutions. There is a good way learning, they keep themselves updated, and there is a cross-sectional learning which takes place. I think that's a great movement forward, besides professional practice, which is part of the education policy. There is third area which is very, very important. Many of the institutes, they don't have commercial expertise. You have developed innovation. You have developed PhD thesis, but you don't know where to go, what to do. IP property, they are not aware of it. So at least we should start thinking of setting up or providing support to our educational institution. How do we commercialize innovation? How do we commercialize and get into collaboration with the industry to get moving forward? IP management becomes very, very important. Technology transfer is very, very important, because when we started looking at some of the NIPERS, yes, the patents are there, but patents are not used, and we have been just giving the patent fee every year, and those patents are meaningless. So unless we look at the basic, right from the basic, we will not be able to make fundamental change. So first is academic talent and infrastructure. Second is governing framework. The way academic institutions work and the way industry works, there is a fundamental difference. We work with very strong deadlines in industry. We work with strong outcomes, and there is a frustration right in the beginning, because outcomes may not be coming at the speed what is required, and governance framework is not there. So if the expectations are laid down, and then academic thinks that there need to be academic freedom, there has to be IP rights have to be protected. When it goes to the industry, they cannot be sure of. So how do we build that academic framework? So in the industry, we follow stage and gate process, that every stage is set up, outcomes is measured. If the research is not leading to the outcome, we give away those research, we focus on the relevant research. So stage and gate methodology is a very important methodology which is employed by all commercial organizations in the world. So how do we build those practices together and get moving forward? The third area is develop an external ecosystem. Research is a multi-specialty area today, and if we see global innovation hub, whether it is Stanford or Massachusetts or Singapore, there is a collaboration. And one of the good things when we learned and heard IIT Kanpur is setting up a hospital, and it is a great thing that biological and chemistry and engineering sciences are getting together. We have to encourage more and more collaboration. Everyone operates with an ego in academic institution. How do we dissolve it and work for a larger cause becomes much more important. But there are great science where we will start working, because in pharma research we realize that biology and chemistry, unless comes together, it will not move forward. It is a great example that only 3% of clinical research takes place in India, whereas India's population is 18%. If we want to have diversity in research, which is the demand globally, there is a huge opportunity to work together and make advancement in this particular area. So huge opportunity to get multi-stakeholders collaboration, and the concept of clusters, which is Stanford or say Massachusetts, or why can't we have clusters, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Jaipur, and other cities, and create that experimentation and then percolate down from there. Last is, I will just focus on the last point, is the policy area. The Bayh-Dole Act has proved to be very beneficial for research in US, where teachers can launch the companies, they can share the rewards in the companies, and today in US, it is as good to work in educational institution as in a company or a small scale sector, because you get the advantage of the benefits of innovation which are coming out. Can we think of something like Bayh-Dole Impact Act, which encourages research as far as the whole area is concerned? And last is research funding. Government has launched research fund and also CSR scheme where companies can invest in the research. However, lot needs to be done in that area. Last, I will just conclude. In the pharma, we are committed to take this industry forward. We are 14th largest in terms of value, 3rd largest in terms of volume. Our vision is 120-30 by 2030. We like to be among number 1 in terms of volume and top 5 in research, and by 2047, $500 billion. Number 1 in volume, top 3 in the world, and educational industry linkage will play a very important role. R&D will play a very important role. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening us on Research Academia Connect. On the same topic, may I now request Professor Kumar and Shivrajan, Chief Technology Officer, Tejas Network, to give inputs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Honorable Minister, Secretary, distinguished colleagues on the dais and in the audience. I don't have slides, so you can just listen to me. I come from the telecom sector, and roughly speaking, we are about 40 years behind in indigenization compared to the pharma industry. Okay, so we import everything today, we export nothing. Okay, and we are trying to build our first telecommunication systems in the country with the help of academia. So let me address the questions that I've heard over 2 decades. Ever since I left IISc to do a startup, a lot of questions come up. What should academia do? What should industry do? So, for example, if 5G is being built at a consortium of IITs and ISC, the question in private many people asked me was, isn't this industry's job? You know, why should the premium research institutions of the country be building technology that's been built everywhere else in the world before? 5G, you should be building 6G, not 5G. So I used to, struggle to answer, and then I think the answer dawned on me last week as I was watching Oppenheimer. Okay, because the Germans had built a bomb, and America needed a bomb. They could have gone to the ordnance company of the US, whatever it was that was building bombs, and say, look, there is something called fission, go talk to some academics and build me a bomb, right? But they didn't do that. They went to Caltech, Berkeley, Chicago, Princeton, and said, you scientists, you build me a bomb, okay? And that's kind of what we had for 5G. And this was, not that the bomb was the first time, right? The bomb was built by Germans, supposedly. And then when the Russians did it again, I'm sure they went to the scientists. They didn't go and say, look, America has already built a bomb. I don't know how it can be done, now you do it. So that was the same thing for us for 5G. Yes, the Europeans had it, the Americans had it. There are 5 companies, the Chinese had it. There are only 3 countries in the world. And if we needed it, we needed to go to academia here and say, show us it can be done, how to do it, both the base station and everything. And now industry will follow. Now, which industry takes it? I can tell you after that there are 5 startups building 5G base stations. 5 years ago there was 0 even building 4G because you didn't know it could be done. It's the same thing with Mount Everest. The first person to climb Mount Everest is the one who is facing this undaunted thing. After there are hundreds of people climbing every day. Okay, so this is the role of academia. You have to show that it can be done. Okay, and that was important in this 5G project. It was important for Shakti microprocessor, because who was building microprocessors here, right? So from scratch. And there is recently an advanced optical communication, again a consortium project, where again the researchers are going through the same sort of soul searching. Components are built worldwide, systems are built. Why are we doing it? And I was there last Sunday morning around this time. And what I told them was, you have to show people it can be done. You will spawn off startups, you will spawn off industries. The other aspect is the time frame. Okay, so in Los Alamos, all the scientists came together for maybe 3 years, and then most of them went back. Oppenheimer went to Princeton, maybe from Caltech, but everybody went back to their research. If you are getting the top quality minds, it is very important that whatever you are asking them to do for the national good is not a life sentence. Okay, because they are there because they want to explore new areas. They want to advance the field. And everyone is committed to doing something for national interest, but it has to be really national interest, it has to be a very bold goal, and it has to be time bound. I think this is how you can get the best minds to work on it. If you say, okay, this is a part-time thing, and then you go back. Okay, so this is the other point I want to make. And it's not that we haven't done this historically, right? I think Professor Satish Dhawan was heading ISRO, while he was also director of ISC, because ISRO needed his leadership. If you go back even further to our Oppenheimer and Trinity, Homi Bhabha came from IISc to start the Atomic Energy Commission. So we've also had a history, except that we've forgotten or we don't talk about it a lot. So this is my first message. And then who does it, right? Look at the Oppenheimer project. It was all the senior people, the Nobel laureates, and except Oppenheimer, he happened not to get a Nobel. Everyone else there was a Nobel laureate. You didn't have young assistant professors doing this. Why? Because they have to work towards their Nobel. You can't put them on making a bomb. So that's also another example for us. Leave the scientists alone till they get their Bhatnagar. Okay? After they get their Bhatnagar, put them on a national project. Okay? So this is my sort of next message. Bold goals. I think people talked about bold goals. And I think that's important. So few things we missed the bus on. Right, so of course we missed the bus in my own field in 5G. So now we're doing 6G, and I'll come to how we should do 6G. We missed the bus on AI. Okay, If we were like software powerhouse and we were top in computer science, maybe not in the physical fields, we should have built ChatGPT. Okay, so let's make amends. Let's build ChatGPT. I think Altman, the founder of OpenAI, threw out a challenge. He says, you guys can't build ChatGPT. This is beyond India's capability. I only saw this chairman of Mahindra & Mahindra react, but where is the program to build ChatGPT? So we should build ChatGPT++, okay? Maybe we should build ChatGPT for English and all Indian languages. I heard some discussion of Indian languages here, okay? Quantum computing. Again, we are behind. We don't have a quantum computer in the country. I think I read somewhere Google is building or has built a 128 qubit quantum computer. Simple goal, build a 128 qubit quantum computer. Okay, we have to be very quick to catch up to the leading edge before we now say we will do the next big thing, which we don't even know how to define yet, right? So first catch up. We are behind in quantum computing. I don't know what the application of quantum entanglement is, but whatever it is, if it's quantum communication, let's build that. Let's build a ChatGPT equivalent, modify it, make it better. So I think these are the bold goals, and it will require the top minds in the country. So you can't tell some industry people to go build a 128 qubit quantum computer. The US can, because Google has probably the capability. Here we can't. We need the IISc and the IITs to do that leadership. Okay. So after big projects, let me move on to what should startups do. I also came out of IISc to do a startup. Mine was different in the sense I had a lot of funding to begin with, thanks to Desh Pandey, who said, okay, here's $5 million, do a startup. So that's just different. Normally you have to go around and raise funding. And you need deep tech, and I'm focusing on deep tech startups. Okay. So you could do other things, Paytm and Byju's, so that's out of scope for me to think anyway. I'm not saying they're not good startups, they're great startups. But if you do deep tech out of IISc or IIT, and I think Professor Bharadwaj at IISc had invited me last month to talk to about 10 or 20 startups, saying, what's my advice to them? So most of them have some technology. So my advice to them was, you first go talk to customers. See, I think when you get a startup a deep tech startup out of an institute, they are so enamored of what that technology can do or how good that technology is compared to everything else. Because they're usually used to publishing in physical review letters or something. So the yardstick there is very different. Okay. Whereas here, you don't want to know what the application is. So my advice to them was, talk to 20 customers and completely modify your area, and I guarantee by the time you're done, whatever you're planning to do, you would have shelved it long ago, and you build something which is really relevant and has a market. Okay? So my advice to startups was two things. First, go talk to customers, modify your area entirely because you don't even know what's relevant. In that process, you will learn this aspect called product management, which is you build what is useful for the customer with what you have, rather than what you can build. And then you build and then go look for a customer. This doesn't work, and that's the main reason many startups fail, because you haven't built anything relevant or which is needed by the customer. And then I also think business skills are needed. In terms of, I think I heard one of the speakers mention, we need to include all other institutions. I think that is necessary, because that's the force multiplier, but I would still say IISc, IITs have to play the role today for some time in creating that next deep technology. And this is not different from, say, the US. In the US, the top 10, 15 institutions still provide the leadership when it comes to breakthrough technology, and here it has to be the IISc and IIT. So that's my second advice on startups. The last one applies more to mature industries, doesn't apply in my area. It kind of applies for 6G. So again, I was at IISc 2 weekends ago with IEEE, ComSoc. There was a 6G meet, which is to say, what do we do in 6G? So clearly, so my expectation is 5G is done. Companies will build 5G in India, and they will start even exporting equipment. So now the role of academic institutions like IISc, IIT Madras, which was leading the 5G project, is to focus only on the deep tech part of 6G and work with industry. Okay, what is the new waveform? What is the new communication technology for 6G? By the way, let me tell you, 5G didn't change anything from 4G. 5G is 4G plus a little bit of band-aid, okay? So in 6G, we need to revolutionize. We need to develop the basic radio interface technology, which will become the 6G standard. And I think the role of now academia in this is to work on fundamental aspects of those standards, because 6G will only come in 2030. So I think for mature industries, academia's role should be do the fundamental stuff, and industry should also know and understand that they don't have that fundamental capability within them. Maybe the pharma sector does, definitely in my sector we don't. So we have to reach out to industry, define or ask them what are the problems we are struggling with, the fundamental problems. Be satisfied that they will only do the basic breakthrough, or they'll give you advice, or they'll give you a proof of concept, or in my case, a MATLAB implementation of something. And then you have to take it and make it a product. I think industry, by and large, has to realize that established industry cooperating with academia, you cannot complain, oh, they didn't do a finished product, they only did half. That's not their job. That's your job, and they're helping you with the leading edge. And in a lot of this, I want to make sure that one thing is not lost, that we still have the basic research, because today we are exploiting quantum or something else that came 100 years ago. If you're not working today on the breakthrough of areas of science, what will we do? Forever, we cannot be behind. So I would say let not applied research and industrial thing come at the cost of basic research. We should still be the ones discovering the next new things, whether it be in physics. Physics is easy to sort of relate to, so we should have our atom collider, we should have our large telescopes, we should be figuring out what the universe is 13 billion years old or 26 billion years old. We should be doing the next new superconductor, whether it has an application or not. So that has to happen, and has to happen at a much bigger pace, but this is my prescription for how to work with industry and academia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your views on the subject. We welcome Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, who is with us now. Sir, may I request Professor Sudhir Kumar Jain, Vice Chancellor BHU, to share some of the best practices and suggest a way ahead. Sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we heard two IIT professors and two industry leaders. And as our chairman of the session said, India is not just IITs and ISCs. There is a whole lot of university ecosystem. So I decided that I'll talk very briefly about the university system, just get out of the IIT mindset for a few minutes. Firstly, we need to think about why the university exists, right? Is it for teaching, or is it for teaching and research? It cannot be only for research. Then it is not a university. So university has to be either teaching only or teaching and research. If it is teaching, we need to be very clear. Are we creating top quality few graduates or very large number of graduates? These are totally two different models, and we sometimes confuse between the two. Why I say this is that this is not a new idea. The California followed it from 1960 onwards. They said there will be a set of universities that will be teaching and research. There will be another set of universities that will be only teaching. So it works, and it works beautifully in California. And I think time for India to start thinking that every university should not do research, or should not be expected to do research. They can do research, but should not be expected to do research. Now, research is of two types in my mind. One is research for credentials. I have published a good paper, I am a great scientist, give me Bhatnagar Award. So what? How does the country care that I am a great researcher? How does the country care that I published in a top journal? That is credentials. My university has H index of 500. How do you care? What did you give to the country? You build the credentials of the individual, you build the credentials of the organization, but what about the country? The second is research for impact. How will it change things? How will it meet requirements? Research is really meant for that. However, there is a caveat here. In order to be able to get funding and trust for impact, you need to have credentials. As a young assistant professor, it is okay to worry about credentials. That is what he was saying about, Kumar was saying about Los Alamos not taking assistant professors because they were still busy building their credentials. But once you build your credentials, you have to show impact. If you're a 55-year-old and you're proud of your Bhatnagar award, there is a problem. At 55 years old, you should say what impact was made. At 45-year-old, you should be proud of Bhatnagar, right? All right, what does quality research require? 3 things. Talent, resources, governance. What do I mean by talent? You need quality of recruitment, faculty, staff, students, including the housekeeping staff, including the toilet. You can't do good research if your toilets are dirty, trust me. There is one problem I solved. How can a research worker stay there in the night if his toilets are dirty? You need to give them clean food, clean tea, water, chai, snacks, and clean toilet. Which means to do good research, you need good housekeeping staff, you need good security staff, you need good clerks. You need subjective criteria for evaluating research. Unfortunately, in our country, we have so much distrust that everything we want objective criteria. We don't need to apply our mind. I wish we had started to look for brides and grooms for our children on subjective criteria. Itna height hoga to itne point, salary itna hoga to itne point. जिसका highest point होगा उसका वो मैं अपना daughter-in-law बनाने वाला हूँ. If you can't do that, if you can't choose daughter-in-law for your family based on an objective criteria, how are you recruiting top quality faculty in your top universities on an objective criteria? It bothers me. You need to worry about quality of research, not quantity of research. At the end of it, impact will be from quality of research. Retention of talent is a big issue. It's a jungle. Big fish will eat smaller fish. A good academic will always try to move to a better institution. So it is my job to retain my talent. It's a very big problem. And finally, I need diversity. I need different types of people. Even in Oppenheimer, they talk about our friend Oppenheimer having artists in Los Alamos. He's building atom bomb, but he's hiring artists. That is the diversity you need. You need generous resources. You need quality students. You need quality research and laboratory staff. You need funds. And funds are of 2 types, external funds and internal funds. Funds is like a zoo animal. I once went to Gir forest, where there are lions, sher. And the forest officer told me, sir, this pride of lions, they were released from zoo 3 generations back. They have not yet learned how to kill. If you are a zoo animal, you get food. You never learn how to kill. So, if you are given internal funds, unlimited, you will not learn how to kill, how to get funds from DST, from DABT, from other sources. So, you need to give funds to your colleagues enough so that they don't die, so that they don't starve, so that they don't become weak, but don't give them enough so that they stop killing. That is what I mean by external and internal funds. You need good laboratories, you need equipment, you need library, databases, you need infrastructure, even guest house. To do good quality research, you need a good guest house. Research can be very expensive. And just to give you a little bit of comparison, I one day sat down on the computer and I looked at some American universities and I went to the Wikipedia. And I said, how much endowment they have and how many students they have, I divided that number. And I got the number $2 million to $4 million per student. If they take 5% of that as their operating expense from the endowment, they get 80 lakh rupees to 180 lakh rupees per year per student, ladies and gentlemen. This is the group that you want to compete with. This is the group you want to compete. This is what India wants to compete with. My guess is that the best of the institutions in our country might be spending a total of 10, 15 lakh rupees. Best, most well-funded ISC Bangalore type institutions. Total budget divided by the number of students will be of the order of 10 to 15 lakh rupees, not more. This is the money coming out of endowment. This is not the tuition fee. This is not the research money. This is not the rental fees. We need huge culture, ethics and integrity of the entire university system. the peer group. What kind of people you have? Are they themselves excited about research? You can't do research if everybody around me is not excited about research. Collegiality. Do they like each other? Do they hate each other? In American universities, promotion criteria will cover collegiality. If you're very acrimonious, you fight with everybody, they might not give you tenure. Very rarely, I was very surprised, Caltech vice president told me that Caltech has the strength to be able to handle the acrimonious guy if he's really brilliant. What it means is that if there is an Einstein, we will allow him to throw tantrums. But most universities would not allow. Interdisciplinarity, tolerance for failures, expectations and aspirations, both individual level, department level, faculty level. Governance, ease of transactions. How easy, how difficult it is for somebody to carry out his research, how easy it is for that person to hire a research staff. Does he need to go through a lot of advertisements and 6 months of recruiting time in order to hire a research staff? Procurement, how difficult it is. I have been saying India's biggest challenge, and some of you have heard about this, India's biggest challenge is that we run our universities and our scientific enterprise as a civil service. Our procurement is the same as a PWD officer's procurement. It's problematic. Our recruitment is the same as a PWD officer's recruitment. Our people get probation cleared in 1 year, when 2 senior IS officers will tell you that their probation was cleared in 2 years. They needed their probation to be cleared in 2 years because after that, as a deputy collector, they cannot go after the crooks. The crooks will get them fired. The income tax officer has to be cleared in 2 years. But a university professor should be cleared only after 5 or 7 years, after he or she has shown his potential. A PWD officer needs a lot more due diligence to buy reinforcement. A university professor should be easily able to buy an equipment. So we need to have a totally different GFRs, different mindsets about procurement and recruitment in universities and science. We need systems that support seeking external funds, managing externally funded projects, intellectual property management, some of this was talked about, recognition and promotion policies. Most important in universities is consistency in time and space. Universities are very, very deeply hurt when there is a sharp U-turns by new administration. Every time a new vice chancellor comes, there is a sharp U-turn, faculty gets totally zapped. You need to have consistency in time and in space. It cannot be that physics is having some policy and math is having totally different policy. I will just share with you very quickly a few initiatives. We started to give a lot of resources to faculty, but not enough, which means that there is enough sustainable money, but they still need to go out and get money from outside. The example of zoo. Some money for international travel, some professional development funds, some seed grant for new faculty, research grants to productive faculty, top-up money if you get an externally funded project. If you are working with more than one faculty, somebody from Ayurveda is working with somebody in chemistry, we will give you some money, equipment grants, and things like that. We started to give PhD students some money in recent times. Any PhD student wants to travel abroad. We said any good student showing good potential, we will spend money to let him or her be overseas laboratory for 1 semester. We said any student of PhD want to go to IC Bangalore for 6 months, we will cover him, and so on and so forth. Top-up fellowships, 5-year fellowships. The most important thing that we did in BHU for research was to create a separate cell with a 48-hour mandate. When I went there, I was told that the faculty is frustrated with the processes taking so much time on their paperwork that they said, we don't want to write DBT project. And I said, no paper should be stuck for more than 48 hours. If 48 hours you don't clear the paper, there is a problem with you. And today when I talk to young faculty, they're very happy. They say, sir, we used to go to central office, now we don't even go to central office. To my mind, in the entire research ecosystem, if India has to do well, I think it is the culture and governance. Everything else will fall in place. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, we can have a few questions from the audience, sir. Due to paucity of time, we can have just 2, 3, please. Mike, please.
Mike, I think first of all, thanks for such a wonderful overview from industry, academia, government policy. My name is Satnarayana from GD Goenka University. So I'm from a private university. The question is, I think all the new research policy says about 50,000 crores. It means about 2.5 lakh for 10% of 2 million faculty, if at all, and that may be over a period of years and not even 1 year, the grant that they would get. Typically, private gets, I mean, very minuscule research compared to the government established institutions, whereas major section of today in engineering is private, medical maybe less than 50%. And then above all, industry academic research was spoken, but we find that, see, we don't find even 25 Indian industries in top 200 or 25 in top 1000 globally in terms of R&D, and not even 0.25 cents for the 40 million higher education students coming from industry into academia even once in 5 years, let alone annually. So where do we think seriously this industry academic research and this policy, and because all this is wonderful, and especially both the Professor Jain's, I think it was very enumerating, but even the Bayh-Dole Act, we had a 2010-12 somewhere a discussion on Bayh-Dole, but then nothing happened, and even there, some of them have come in innovation and research policy now, but even if it is very half-baked on very low level compared to what provisions of Bayh-Dole. So these are wonderful suggestions. We want to hear more enumeration or examples of how we could aspire to get some support. I mean, we do all the payment, establishment, working for private, but then some amount, even for us to, as a leader, to sustain that, we need at least 0.01% support from government agencies. 2007, Professor Javlekar, I mean, Minister Javlekar said in the Guru Purnima that hereafter research grant for private and public will be same.
Sir, if you can be
I
little
would say
precise,
stop.
please, sir.
Yeah. Stop here.
I think it was more of a suggestion rather than a question.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I think everything starts with, you have to understand that someone needs to get something, ultimately, right? So the way we did it was, we said you will not succeed in a proposal if many of your departments do not come together. So they, right at the beginning, message was given that you are going to fail if you send one proposal from chemical engineering doing something. And lo and behold, because the money was good, and it's important that they had to get the money, every proposal, I can tell you, this is a very interesting statistic, every proposal had at least 4 departments, faculty from 4 departments participating. And I'll also tell you another thing, there was also this talk about assistant professors and professors and so on. I think the world has changed. At IIT Madras, our assistant professors want to contribute. If you tell them, I'm a professor, I'll contribute, you do research, they will say, who are you to tell me? Right? So we had a group of faculty, young assistant professors, all the way up to institute professors participating. And in some of the proposals, the young assistant professors were the PI, with institute professors as co-PIs. So this is very important. I think, like everyone said, the message from the top that if you don't come together, there is no pie for you, is very important. That's how we made sure that people came together organically. Not tell them you work together, but tell them if you don't work together, you're not getting it.
Mike.
The funding of the private university. Actually, in NRF,
You're a principal scientific advisor. Let me speak on it then. So all right. My thought is that research should be colorblind. You are private or you are public. If you have a good idea, and if you want to do research, the public money should be available. That is how I see it. And when I was in SERB, I was assured by SERB officers that that is what is the policy of the government. Now,
no, as far as I know, NRF is agnostic to the type of university in the bill. So there is no such mention whether it will be only for government universities. So that is very clear, and it is there in the bill. So I don't see any reason for any apprehension on that account.
Sir, we can have one more question, sir. Professor Amucha.
So, I'm a director of IIT Ropar, Rajiv Ahuja. So I have a question because we talk about industry, academia too long time, and how academia can mentor the universities. Like in Europe, we have each university has a mentor industry. So they work together so closely. It doesn't matter if it's higher institutions or any university or any college. So we work so close together. So why not we can work here? I can see the big thing is the trust which industry and academia doesn't have in India. So how we can create a trust? We can create a trust if you go to the institution. If institution doesn't come to you, industry can go to institution and try to work together and try to mentor those, especially the state universities, because IITs are self-sufficient and standing on their own feet. But we need this kind of ecosystem in whole country where, and one thing is that industry with government together should start a industrial PhD program. That is very crucial, and to work, collaborate between industry and academia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this question. In fact, if we see, as far as the pharma begun some work, all the NIPers, they have reconstituted their boards and they have taken industry leaders as part of the board. Now that will help to channelize industry efforts. Then we have got different manufacturing sectors in the country like Baddi, Vishakhapatnam, Ahmedabad. All our industry leaders are very closely involved with the manufacturing sectors, with the education sectors. It is at the beginning at this stage. Lot needs to be done, and as you rightly said, that is important to drive innovation.
Just to add to this, actually, it is not that only academia should get the funding from industry. What we should be doing in NRF is the co-funding mechanism, and it is built into that if academia is getting some funding from industry, the matching grant should also come from the government, and together they can work on relevant problems and contribute. So it is not that only you get industry money to do R&D, no, but you can supplement that, or you can join along with the equal amount of government money funding to do that. And that, I think, will also be like a carrot, as was mentioned. Carrot is a big thing. So if you have this carrot of equal funding from two sides, that will also be very effective.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Now we have come to the end of the, now there's a time constraint, I'm sorry. May I now request chair of the session, PSS sir, to kindly give the concluding remarks.
Actually, it is, you have heard so many good points in this last 1.5 hours. It is not a easy job to summarize, but all of us agree that this whole idea of R&D has to be taken up on a much higher scale by addressing what is really coming in the way. So some appropriate mechanisms have been suggested, like Center of Excellence with international collaboration. Also centers of excellence where more than one institute can collaborate within India. That, I think, came out very clearly in the discussion. International collaboration, even in the degree giving, has been brought out, because that will also set our international standards. So that is again something we need to work on, because if we want very good international partners in the tier 1 type of institutes, we have to be also good, and we also be striving to be good. And that will not happen just by saying it. We have to show what we are doing in our own system to attract that. And the other thing which again came out was that we need to have possibility of sharing our resources in the country. Just I wanted to mention that a few years back, maybe 3 years back, Office of PSA started this program called iSTEM. So here on this portal, all the equipments which have been funded by various central agencies have been put up, and they are available without even begging or pleading. They can be obtained, but in practical level what we have to see, which we have to supplement this, are the resources which researchers should get to really maintain those equipments. Because after the funding is over in 3-4 years, then how do you maintain this high cost equipments? So that I think has to be built in our funding system so that it is available across the country in a shared manner. That again I thought it was important thing. Another thing which was mentioned is that when our R&D is at a level which can make a difference, then the deep tech startups will come up. And deep tech startups need many things: access to facilities, which can be very costly. They may not be able to afford it, but also sustained funding. And here also, I just wanted to say a deep tech policy a white paper has been prepared in consultation with about 8 ministries and is in the final stage, and we'll be giving it to government to see what are the mechanisms to do it, and it will be led by DPIIT because they already have a startup policy, as you know. But that startup policy is not enough for the deep tech startups. That's the issue. So what this roadmap has envisaged are what are the additional things this policy needs to really make it applicable to deep tech startups, which is important for the country. So I just thought there are many other points which were mentioned. I don't think we have to look at all that, because all the things you need, as was mentioned, R&D is not just with one or two things. You need many verticals to contribute to this, be it talents, be it funds, be it governance, as was mentioned. So I think this panel discussion re-emphasizes that in R&D we really need to step up our efforts. That I think is a bottom line in all the discussions which our panelists had, and I'm sure with various mechanisms, NRF is only one of them. It's not the medicine for all the problems, but bringing together all the players, all the universities and institutions and national labs. We please don't forget, national labs in our country are also very important. So we have to take them along with industries and startups. So the last part has come up in the last few years, which has to be amplified. So I think with this, we will close it because we are exceeding our time by 5 minutes.
Yes.
So I must thank all of you, and in particular honorable ministers, for really showing the interest in this very important theme, and Secretary Ministry of Education to have all of us together on this very important thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. At the end, we thank our Honorable Minister of Education and Skill Development and Entrepreneurship for sparing his valuable time and joining us throughout the session. We also thank Honorable Minister of State for Education for sparing his valuable time. We thank PSA sir, all the esteemed panelists, Secretary Higher Education, Secretary Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, and all the participants here for the session. Thank you very much. A small announcement for all the participants. You are requested to please attend the valedictory session also in Audi 3 at 3 p.m. Small announcement to participant. Lunch is also arranged at Audi 2 at level 2, and you are also kindly requested to visit the hall number 14 where exhibition is being taken place, and valedictory session at Audi 2 at 3 p.m. Thank you.